Welcome to the Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living. We're so glad you could join us today. For our opening song, we'll have some inspiration from Karen Drucker, and it's a really important thought to remember all day long, all week long. God is my source.
Good morning and welcome to the Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Marilyn O'Leary and I am a practitioner here at your service. Thank you for joining us today. We're so grateful that you're here and we believe that you are here by divine appointment. Helping us in service today, our tech person is Annette Martinez. Always grateful for Annette. On High Watch, we have Teresa Greco and Julia Washington and Kathy Mathiasen. Our invocation and benediction are offered by Greg Gardner. And our talk today is delivered by our wonderful interim minister, Reverend Karen Lindsley. So let's start by joining together in a reading of our vision and mission statements. Vision. Transforming our world with the power of love and action. And our mission, loving all creation through spiritual growth and service, always staying true to our highest self. I now invite practitioner Greg Gardner to come and give the invocation.
How sweet it is to come together this spring morning as the sun returns to our portion of the planet. As the world returns from the stillness and hibernation of the winter, the fields and forests of the countryside begin their journey into the abundance of the summer and the harvest of the autumn. And so too, on this first Sunday of spring, do we begin our journey into this delightful time together. It's with a sense of celebration that we come together today to begin that journey into abundance and harvest. And so today, I bless us with a special blessing for Tammy's father, Curtis, as I bless all who are a part of this celebration this morning, our technical genius, our musical team, our practitioners, and each of us in this room meeting together today. And most especially, I bless our interim minister, Reverend Karen, and her message for us this morning. And so, knowing that all is well, I invite you to join me as I announce, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Greg. That was beautiful. Our spiritual reading today is from Ernest Holmes, from a book called Your Spiritual Power. And I am on page 354 of that book. Well, there is in the innermost recesses of our soul a place which dwells in eternal stillness and inaction. There is also a place at the circumference of our being which, animated by the inner spirit, goes forth to accomplish. Thus alone can contemplation become fruition and inner recognition of an outer realization. And then in the next paragraph, he writes, we would defeat the very purpose of life should we live in a continuous state of meditation or prayer, oblivious to the objective world. The practical values of spiritual perception remain latent until objectified. Any attempt to isolate oneself from the world of action is contrary to the order of the universe, hence futile. The practical religionist seeks to make his dreams come true, and unless his dreams are subjective hallucinations, they will become actual experiences if he demonstrates his principle. And then at the very end of that section, he writes, from such daily meditation, he, that is we, should venture forth into a life of action with a will to do, the determination to be, and a joy in becoming. And now we have our special music.
And here's a favorite from Sugarland called Stand Up.
All the lonely people crying, it could change if we just get started. Lift the darkness, light a fire for the silent and broken heart. Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up, you girls and boys? Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up and use your voice? There's a comfort, there's a healing high above the pain and sorrow. Change is coming, can you feel it? Calling us into a new tomorrow. Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up, you girls and boys? Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up and use your voice? When the words fall all around you, when your hope has turned to dust, let the sound of love surround you, be like a heart in each other. Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up, you girls and boys? Won't you stand up, stand You girls and boys, won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up and use your voice? Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up, you girls and boys? Won't you stand up, stand up, stand up? Won't you stand up and use your voice?
Thanks to the band. It's wonderful. I love their music. I think they're just terrific. And we're fortunate this morning to have Reverend Karen Lindsley, our interim minister, speak to us on the topic of being a spiritual warrior. Reverend Karen.
Thank you so much, Marilyn, and good morning, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here this morning on this absolutely glorious spring day. And I'm thinking about divine synchronicity. I loved Marilyn's reading this morning because she has not heard my talk. All she had was a title and a short little blurb for the talk, and she picked the perfect reading for the talk. She picked a reading that talked about how we go within and we do our inner work, and then we go outward and we take action. And that's what my talk is about this morning. So thank you, Marilyn, for that absolutely glorious reading. It fits so well. And today we are in the last chapter of Community in Action. And this book, it's not my first experience or my first run through with this book. And I enjoyed it just as much this time as I did the last time I went through it. I took Jim Lockard's class about this book, and it was so wonderful to take a deep dive. And in this last chapter, Jim Lockard talks about being a spiritual warrior. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about what it means to be a spiritual warrior. And in this chapter, he discusses the deep inner work that must be done in order to successfully emerge and take perfect right action so that we can step into that flow of divine synchronicity, step in what I like to call a spiritual dance. And so that's what my talk is going to be about. It's going to be about deep inner work and then some action. And you might have figured out by now, you might have guessed that I am a passionate advocate of deep inner work. I'm so passionate about deep inner work that I grow in danger sometimes of staying underneath too long. I have a little meme that I created, and it's got a picture of two ducks in the water with their little heinies standing up out of the water, and their whole the upper half of their body is under the water and you can't see them. And the quote I put with it is, deep inner work is all well and good, but if you stay underneath too long, your backside's going to get cold. So yes, it's a combination of going within and doing that deep inner work and then doing the other piece. So that's my work as an interim minister, is facilitating that deep inner work. It's the most important thing we can do. And if the inner work is not done, I believe all the action in the outer work that we take is wasted and even counterproductive. And that's pretty strong language. So I'd like to talk a bit about this deep inner work, because a lot of times we are reluctant to do that. We are so reluctant to go within. Some people think it's a dangerous neighborhood. Some people have never learned how to do it, and so they're very uncomfortable with it. And I'm here to tell you that it's not a dangerous neighborhood in there, and it's an absolutely glorious thing to do. So let's look at the definition of what a spiritual warrior is, and if we really even want to be a spiritual warrior. I do. I don't know about you, but I do. So Lockhart defines spiritual warriors like this. He says the beloved community is a name for groups of spiritual warriors who are doing the deep work of spiritual preparation and contributing to the expression of the greater good. Deep work of spiritual preparation. And I got to thinking about that phrase, deep work. What is that anyway? Where is it said in this teaching that we have to do deep work in order to successfully contribute to the expression of the greater good? To be honest, Holmes doesn't use the term spiritual warrior. It's nowhere in his writings, at least that I was able to find. And I have a Kindle, and Kindle has this really cool search function. And you can type in something like spiritual warrior in one of his or any of his books. And I tried several, and the term did not come up. So he does not specifically talk about being a spiritual warrior. So I looked it up. I Googled it. And I got this from Wikipedia. The term spiritual warrior is used in Tibetan Buddhism for one who combats the universal enemy, self-ignorance. Now, given that we don't believe in enemies in this teaching, at least I don't, I would phrase that a little bit differently. But for me, yeah, life doesn't go right if I don't know myself. To thine own self be true. You know that phrase? To thine own self be true. If we are self-ignorant, if we are not aware of our beliefs and our thoughts, everything else, for me anyway, goes kind of cattywampus. It's kind of sideways. It doesn't work so well. I feel out of step with the rest of the world and disconnected from God, to be honest with you. So for me, that deep inner work is very important. And Holmes, you know, I did some other searching on Kindle, and I did a search on inner world. 248 references in the Science of Mind textbook alone. This is why I love Kindle. I can do stuff like this. Here's just one quote. He wrote, whatever we think, act, believe in, feel, visualize, vision, image, read, and talk about, in fact, all the processes which affect or impress us at all are going into the subjective state of our thought, which is our individualized use of universal mind. Whatever goes into the subjective state of our thought tends to return again as some condition. So we and we alone control our destiny. And isn't that a strong statement? We used to say around here, change your thinking, change your life. I still believe strongly in that. I need to daily become aware of what my thinking is, change it if it's not working for me. And in that way, I control my destiny. That's another very powerful aspect of deep inner work. If we don't do our deep inner work, we're just subject to the winds of time and the winds of change and the winds of everything else that's blowing around out there. And we're helpless against it. We're victims. So how do we do this deep inner work? My favorite way is sacred study. And we have some really cool ways of doing sacred study around here. All of our classes that we offer here, and we started this teaching as an educational enterprise. So we have tons of classes. We have formal programs. We have informal spiritual enrichment classes. We have all kinds of things. You can get a master's degree at Holmes Institute. So we do have formal programs and informal programs. We have practitioner studies, lots of yummy stuff. And did you know that there's a new class that was developed by Centers for Spiritual Living a couple years ago that details 10 spiritual principles and 9 practices, all of which focus on our inner work. So we teach this stuff. We teach how to do our deep inner work. And I just want to share briefly with you that I'm here as a minister talking with you today as a direct result of spiritual sacred study. I did not initially come to a local center for spiritual living for the fellowship. I did not come for church. I didn't even like church at the time. I came because I had had yet another massive upheaval and loss in my life. I had already dealt with 2 restarts, literal restarts of my life by that time, and I was faced with a third. And I consider myself now an expert in successfully navigating change. But back then, one more change, one more loss, one more upheaval, and I was feeling the pain. And I didn't quite know what to do, but I knew one thing. I knew I needed to deepen my connection with a God of my understanding. And what I had been doing thus far was not working. So off I went to a local center for spiritual living. I didn't necessarily show, in fact, I very rarely showed up to church on Sunday. That was not on my list of things to do. But I began taking classes immediately. And I showed up for every class, and I paid for every class, and I did every class, and I enjoyed them. And eventually, I began to achieve my goal of getting closer to God and feeling more connected with that one. And I got so much more out of it, so much more. Every single class I took changed me from the inside out and changed me for the better. Today, I consider myself a spiritual warrior as a direct result of sacred study. And I've been able to successfully navigate a lot of loss and a lot of changes and a lot of stuff in life. And this is why I do the work of interim ministry, because I go into communities that have experienced a loss. Most communities, it's just one loss. You guys are special. You've had a whole bunch of losses, both on a personal level and on a community-wide level. So important to do that deep inner work. You know, in another spiritual tradition that I practice, it tells me that frothy emotional appeal just simply does not work with people. And I realize a lot of what I'm doing this morning could fall under the category of frothy emotional appeal. And I hope that something sinks in here. I hope that something will allow you to move within on a greater level than you ever have before. I'm not saying you haven't done any deep inner work. I'm saying let's do more of that. Let's do more of that. There's another nice, okay, let me back up a little bit. So in doing more of that, I am offering a workshop this weekend, Saturday, March 27th. It's called Successfully Navigating Change. I encourage you to sign up for it. The leadership of Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living considers this workshop so important that they are offering it. They are sponsoring it so that you can sign up and take the workshop for free. It's a 3-hour workshop. The sign-up link is on the Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living website. Go there and register and sign up, please. So, here's some other yummy stuff that comes with doing deep inner work. And Lockhart speaks about this in the last chapter, and he talks about having done our deep inner work, and then we move into action. And he says that when we move into this action, we must be for something. And he wrote this. He said, if someone tells me what she is against, I will ask her what she is for. Until she knows that, she is not ready for change. Until she is ready for change, she will not generate change, at least not the change that she desires. It's pretty profound stuff, because when I sit down and I feel a rant coming on, and I feel like, oh, I'm against this and I'm against that, and ew, and this is horrible stuff that's happening. That's all being against, and I have to stop and ask myself, what am I for here in this situation? What am I for? And so I ask myself, what am I for? And I start that inner process of changing my thinking. And then I move outward into the world. One of my most favorite Ernest Holmes talks is called Sermon by the Sea. It was his last talk with us as an organization. If you've never heard the talk, you can go to the Science of Mind archives and find it there. In this talk, he advocates being for something and against nothing. And he says something that is always inspirational to me, and I refer to it quite frequently. He says, find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul. And I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. There's a clue in there. When we find ourselves condemning others, we are doing so out of the burden of our soul. And we get to look at that. That's an invitation for us to take a good look at it and emerge for something and against nothing. And it works the same way when we are feeling pain or anguish or dismay as a result, or even a sense of betrayal as a result of all of these losses that have occurred. Those are all invitations. We get to settle in and go within and look at that and change our thinking behind it. That's another important aspect of deep inner work. In many of our classes, and if you've taken any, you're familiar with this, we teach the seed and soil and plant analogy. Our thoughts are the seeds. When we have a loss, our thoughts naturally go to all the unpleasant things associated with the loss. We feel it immensely. The tears come willy-nilly, no rhyme or reason to them, no pattern, no trigger. They just randomly show up at the most inconvenient of times. There's what I call widow's brain. Nice little absent-minded thing going on there if you've had a loss. There's either a desire to sleep too much or you're sleeping not enough. Eating is just wacky. It is said every time we have a loss, not only do we experience that fresh loss, but we might re-experience all the other losses that have occurred in our lives, particularly if we have not done our deep inner work. This is another reason why it's so important to do this work. So this deep inner work is being willing to investigate and feel all the feelings that come up as a result of change and loss. Deep inner work is knowing what fear feels like. It's knowing what it feels like in our bodies physically, and it's knowing what it feels like emotionally, and it's knowing what we do when we feel fear. You know, when you see a spider in the bathtub, do you, without thinking, what's your default setting? Do you kill it or do you relocate it to outdoors? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So we get to look at our fear and we get to investigate that. And deep inner work is also about being compassionate and loving with ourselves and not judging ourselves and not shaming ourselves while we're feeling the feelings. And then there's another major important aspect of deep inner work. And this completes what I call a circle of peace. When we do our deep inner work, we are simultaneously nurturing and strengthening our connection with God, because what does this teaching tell us? It tells us that God is within. It tells us even more than that. It tells us not only is God within us, but it is a part of us. And when we go within, we connect with that God. Holmes says that each one of us is a unique and individualized manifestation of God. So the more we can go within and get to know ourselves, the more connected we are to God. And the more connected we are to God, the more faith we have, the more trust we have, and the less fear we have. And the more faith and trust we have, the more we enjoy life to its fullest. For me, that was the reason I came into Centers for Spiritual Living, was because I wanted a deeper connection with God. And I was guided and directed to go within. And that's absolutely the right place to go. So do take the workshop on Saturday. Let's get some deep inner work done. And then we can move on to the fun stuff of recreating this beloved community in the image and the likeness of a loving God that is expressed through each and every one of you. All of you lovely spiritual warriors that are out there. Lockhart says, you're probably not going to like this one. He says, the idea is to disrupt the level of thinking and belief that is currently embodied and create space for a new, higher, more spiritually attuned level of thinking and belief to emerge. So yeah, you guys have had a lot of disruptions. Those disruptions are an invitation to take a look at your level of thinking and your beliefs that are embodied within you and create space for the new. Create space for the new. So here we are, having done some inner work. And you know, every time I've done some inner work, I've emerged and I've done what is promised. I've taken action and I have created a new destiny for myself in my life. And sometimes I'll sit back and I'll look at what was in my life and what is now, and realize there is no road from there to here. There's no map. It should not be possible for me to get from where I was to where I am today. And yet I have experienced that over and over and over again in my life. I've gone from one place to another place where there has seemingly been no road, no map, no GPS, none of that. How does that happen? It happens because I've been willing to do my deep inner work and engage in this absolutely divine dance with God and come out, merrily skipping to an absolutely beautiful beat. Other people call this stuff miracles. We know better. We know better because there are no miracles in science of mind, only a natural outcome, only a consequence of our doing our work and then coming out and taking action based on that deep inner work. So Lockhart ends his book with this statement. He says, there is no one way to heal the world, no single pathway forward. There are a multitude of good deeds to be done and doors to be opened, old beliefs to be challenged, and lives to improve. So let's do this thing. Let's do our deep inner work and then emerge to take action and recreate ourselves and this beloved community called Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living. And so I pray. And I know and I feel this ever-present thing called God. I know that God is everywhere present and all good all the time. And I feel this oneness with God, and I know this oneness with God. And I know without a doubt that I am a unique and individualized manifestation of God. And so I speak my words right here and right now, knowing that the deep, sacred, beautiful, powerful, deep inner work continues. And through this process of deep inner work emerges an absolutely wonderful game plan for action that is good and very good. And so I release an anchor with those wonderful words, and so it is. And I turn it over now back to our platform assistant. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Karen. That was absolutely wonderful. You really put it all together for us this morning. Thank you. And now it's time to share our abundance. There are multiple ways to give our abundance to the Rio Grande Center, and these are scrolling down at across the bottom of the screen now. So thank you so much for all that you can share with us to be able to continue to serve you in this way. Let's say the giving affirmation that will be on the screen. Here it is. Affirmation of abundance. I am abundant and I give from my abundance. I am prosperous and I give from my prosperity. I am blessed and I give from my blessings. My blessings of spirit are as abundant as the stars. And so I give and receive generously. And so it is. And now it's time for another song from the band. And please give during this beautiful song. Thank you.
Here's a contemporary song from our alternate roots called Nothing More.
To be humble, to be kind, it is a given now, peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other today's time. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. To be bold, to be brave, is the thinking that the heart can be saved, and the thoughts can come quick. The names and the anger and the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other on the basis. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. Tell me what it is that you see. World is full of endless possibility, and heroes don't look like they used to. They look like they do.
Thank you, Ben. That was wonderful. So would you all please help me bless these offerings now? And thank you for them. O divine giver of life, we gratefully accept these and all your gifts on behalf of our congregation and its work. May the gift return to the giver 1,000-fold. And so in a minute, we're going to have our announcements from Dr. Norm, but I wanted to also mention to you that I am offering a workshop on the book Me and White Supremacy, and it's the opportunity to look at our unintentional bias and do it without Reverend Karen talked about blame and shame this morning, and this workshop, this class will give us an opportunity to look at that unintentional bias without any blame or without any shame. So if you're interested in it and know that change is necessary for all of us on this level, please go to the website and sign up. This class will begin in April and it goes for 6 weeks. So anyway, I urge you to do that. And also, please join us later in the Zoom room and for our fellowship and our ability to greet each other. The link for this is in our newsletter. And now, thank you all, and I am very happy to be able to turn this over to Dr. Norm Dawson for our announcements. Dr. Norm.
Hey, now you can hear me. I've had the same problem many times. Sorry about that. I need to turn my mic on. It's hay fever season, and yesterday was the first day of spring, and it's notified me for sure. So I may even sneeze during this announcement section here. So please bear with me. Thank you. So the announcements of upcoming possibilities include the book for the second quarter, which is just about done here. Not the book, but the quarter. Your Redefining Moments, Becoming Who You Were Born to Be by Dennis Merritt Jones. And a bonus book for meditation and contemplation is Transitions by Julia Cameron. You get both these books on AmazonSmile.com. A little bit of the proceeds from the sale of those books comes back to the center. So be sure you use Amazon Smile. The Monday morning meditation is still going. Last week there were some technical difficulties and only 5 people were able to show up because of that. But it started late, but you can still join. It's still going on. It resumes again as usual next Monday at 9 a.m. with our lovely Gwyneth. Gwyneth is going to be the yoga person. Yes, and also don't forget the yoga. It's not the YMCA thing, it's yoga. And that's going to be continuing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. Zoom. And also, if you're kind of shy and apprehensive and don't know how to do yoga, there's a beginning class on Mondays and Fridays at 8:30. You know, I started there at beginners and it works. So these are all on Zoom, and you get all the details how to do that on the newsletter, the weekly newsletter. Food drive is still going strong here. It's going to run through the end of March, and that's being sponsored by the Community Reach Out Project. And that's going to benefit the Mary Ann Binford Elementary School for food insecure families. So you can bring your food and hygiene products, and that can be canned food, bread, water, shampoo products, soap products, and all that kind of good stuff. Just bring it down to the center between Monday and Thursday from 10 to 3. And they have all kinds of colored barrels there. You can put the stuff in there. Also, a nice thing about this is that if you want to send a check or bring a check by, somebody at the center will do the shopping for you for the benefit of the food drive. Okay, Me and White Supremacy, a journaling and discussion group that has been talked about by Marilyn, did a great job of explaining this. And this is for white people. Oh, well, it could be for anybody, but white people seem to have a lot of unintentional biases. And this is a great workshop to raise the awareness of what's going on. And that's going to be Tuesdays starting in April from 3 to 4:30 for about 6 weeks. Marilyn O'Leary will be the moderator, and that's a $60 cost. Get all the details in the newsletter. The transition update. Okay, we're still looking for that new senior minister. It's going to take several months to do this. And right now we need 2 laity community members and 2 committee heads. So if you need details on what the requirements are, especially if you need to know that you're an active member, join and be sure you have that taken care of before Sunday, March 21st, before midnight. Maria Dion will be the person, but go to the newsletter, you'll get all the details. The workshop in Successfully Navigating Transition by Reverend Karen, she mentioned that also. And this is about great change. We have had some definite changes in our lifestyles, radically changing us. So this is going to be, this has affected us culturally, emotionally, and spiritually. So Reverend Karen is going to be running that program March 27th from 10 to 1. And that is a love offering. Again, check the newsletter for details. And be sure, before I turn it over to our next section here, be sure to come to the Zoom room just a few minutes afterwards for the fellowship and sharing. And now, if you don't know it now, but it is closed captioned. So that means anybody can attend. Of course, anybody has always been able to attend. But before I turn it over to the Bright Ideas Share, I want to mention that Carol Ann Armijo will be in this video session here. And she, you know, if you know anything about Carol Ann Armijo, she had her fingers on everything, you know, afterwards, the festivities and helping organize things after the service at the center. And actually going to get her fingers in the food by putting together a cookbook committee to create a recipe book. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol Armijo and her Bright Ideas Share program.
Hi, everybody. This is Carol Ann talking to you, and I thought I would tell you how excited I am about putting together this cookbook. And I'm looking for a couple of people that would be interested in, to have some fun, maybe just an hour and a half a week, and to put this all together, organize it, and make it look pretty and stuff. So if you're interested, give me a call, and I think we could do a good job. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you go.
Thank you very much, Dr. Norm. And now Greg Gardner will conclude our service with a benediction.
Now that our time together this morning, doing our frothy emotional work, as that time comes to a pause, I'm grateful for our time together. At the same time, I remember that we remain together in community as spiritual warriors in that spirit community, a community that is conscious of the peace, understanding, compassion, and love that are the heartbeat of this journey we call life. And so it is with additional blessings for Tammy's father, Curtis. I bless each of us as we move out into the remainder of this day and the remainder of this spring season. I know that we continue on in safety, abundance, and love. Please join me as our time here comes to a pause, and I declare, and so it is.
So it is.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful